not any harmful ones like Gen X. It's been 8 years since we found out that our drinking water had been filled with forever chemicals, or PFAS, for decades. For Clean Cape Fear's Emily Donovan, that made Wednesday's news from Washington even more frustrating.
But more than being devastating, this is dangerous too, because we're talking about public health and people's ability to manage their health.
The Environmental Protection Agency announcing plans to scrap limits on how much PFAS can be in our drinking water. The EPA plans to maintain their limits on two other chemicals, PFOA and PFOS, but Donovan says those aren't used much anymore.
The general consensus is just that this was ridiculous.
The move puts pressure on our water utility companies. Many utilities in our area already filter out PFAS compounds like Gen X, but the ones that don't have to decide either spend the money to filter the chemicals out or keep leaving them in your tap. It's a decision that hits close to home for many of us, including Martha Johnson, who lives in Southport.
Since I've moved here, I've had 4 friends die of a form of blood cancer that's very rare, and this is in Southport. And that scares me.
Johnson believes poor water quality and the poor health of her community are directly linked. Now she's worried about her health.
We've been here for 17 years, and we don't know what's going into our bodies because the water's polluted, and that really, really disturbs me.
Even after nearly a decade, there's still uncertainty about what's coming out of the faucet and going into our glass. In the EPA's announcement, Administrator Lee Zeldin says the agency is still committed to addressing PFAS in drinking water while also following the law. Fran?
Connor, the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority provides water to thousands of people around our region. What was their response to this decision?
Well, a spokesperson says their support for PFAS limits has not changed, and they also said their filters have consistently removed PFAS to levels that you can't even detect.
All right. Thanks, Connor.